Hello, hello, hello. We are here.
Aloha. We are here.
Further
Session
clapping.
-1.
-1.
See,
Minus
we're
one.
already breaking down barriers of the tabletop world.
Which is revealing how bad an idea this is, where we're like, yeah, we're going to stream a TTRPG that you guys aren't even aware of. But, I mean, it works out. It'll be great. So what I've done for these poor lads is I've made a slideshow, a PowerPoint slideshow. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say PowerPoint. Microsoft might come after us now. But I've made a slideshow for you guys to learn Fate, which is the system we're going to be using for Infinitesimal, the role-playing game that we're going to be indulging in. And before we start, let me introduce you to a friend of mine, Top Hat Dog.
Top Hat Dog.
This is
Beautiful.
Top Hat Dog. This is me making it more accessible to you, because explaining rules to people is like the worst thing you could possibly do to a human being.
Agreed.
So I've made it a bit more accessible. So, Top Hat Dog's Guide to Fate Core System. Now,
And just to jump in, I feel like it needs to be mentioned that you have toyed with considerably which system we were going to play
yeah.
this beautiful campaign with.
So
And before this, it was GURPS, I believe.
GURPS, yeah.
GURPS.
So we toiled, and toiled is the right word. And you know what? In all fairness to GURPS, I'm really grateful we did that, because they're like delving into their character creation system and like the amount of skills and stuff you've got on hand really helps with Fate, because all their skills fit a same formula, except you just make them up yourself. But yeah,
It gave us a
GURPS.
kind of grounding for the world we're going to be living in, didn't it? And the characters we want to make. So it was worthwhile. It was time well spent.
Yeah. Me and Luke had an argument that will hereby be known as the turret argument, where Luke
Unfortunately, it wasn't online.
completely
It wasn't
fairly
recorded.
wanted a shoulder-mounted turret, or like a turret that he could deploy, and GURPS essentially said no, and we struggled really hard to figure that out, and I thought it was a bit too complex for our first session, and so on and so forth.
But then when GURPS finally said yes, it was like, the moment's gone now. Let's not do GURPS.
Yeah, the way that GURPS said yes to it, I was like, oh god.
Well, if
And
GURPS,
then
if GURPS fails the initial turret test, then it's not
Yeah.
long.
Oh, yeah,
long-term prospects, is it? So
And the issue as well was that we wanted to make a space sim, like, so Infinitesimal is a sci-fi story, and all of you guys had laser rifles, and turns out laser rifles are inherently powerful, and pretty much any NPC I'd throw at you would get immediately vaporized. So that was an issue.
this is fine with us, to be fair, because we're all about the power gaming. So
Yeah, 100%. But anyway, yeah, we're getting beside ourselves.
I'm assuming
Fate Core system.
your PowerPoint is so accessible that this video will act as like a guide to anyone who's interested in playing Fate in their own games as well, I guess.
I mean, especially
And
for players.
if you have any guests play with us, this would be a nice go watch this video.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Fate is a really nice system. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll actually, since we're sort of like making this public now, I'll give some recommendations. The Adventure Zone had a podcast, and it was a very short season where their dad was the GM, and he did a superhero story. I loved it. I thought it was my favorite one of all of them, using the Fate system. So if you're interested, go listen to that. It's only a few episodes, really interesting. They make superheroes and stuff. And the other thing I'd recommend is the Fate's website. They pretty much like give you everything for free. I've got the books, but anything that's in the book is already on their website. It's pretty much a very accessible system. So yeah,
should we introduce ourselves?
No. We're Enigmas. You guys can't see the frame, but your little names are in this corner, so you aren't already named.
Okay.
So, but you introduce yourselves. Tell me your history of tabletop role playing games. Luke Williams, you go first.
I'm Luke Williams. Thank you, Y'all Roberts. And
This officially feels like a video conferencing call now.
horrible, isn't it? Like
We'll put a
the
timestamp
rest of
where you
my
can skip this,
comprehensions,
this 5 minutes.
my experience of tabletop gaming starts during COVID when we played Dungeons and Dragons and Tartarus Gay and a couple of other different ones. What was that one that we played?
Monster of the Week.
We played Monster of the Week quite a lot.
Monster of the Week.
Famously.
Not Monster of the Week.
Everybody is John.
Played Monster.
So
Everybody's
everyone's
John.
Yeah.
What was that one called? The Seasons. What was it called?
Oh, yeah, that one.
The one we draw on the map.
Oh, that's
So you've got
that's
a
going to
copy
frustrate
of
the
the other.
crap out of me now.
well,
it's like it can be a card game. I actually have it, and I don't know where it is.
You're going to remember halfway through this.
Okay, yeah, that's a Google job. I don't have my phone. Okay, well, it'll come to
Anyway,
me.
next.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we all have the same tabletop role-playing game experience because we all played it together.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a longer and more varied history.
Oh, sorry,
that,
Phil. Sorry, Phil.
No, sorry,
Phil,
I'm not gonna bore you with it. Then.
No, go for it.
Well, no, it started when I was younger. I used to be obsessed with Hero Quest. Remember those little board game?
Oh,
That was my starting point. Although I never actually learned the rules, I just built little dungeons and played around with the figures. And that was when I was 7. And then when I was 8, we played and then obviously I played a lot of UO as well as role playing on that. That was my initial role playing sort of vibe. And we played quite a bit with Jim as well back in the day, Luke. Remember we played at our house?
Yeah,
going
that's
back,
true.
going back 15 years.
Did you ever play Warhammer with us way back when?
Not really. I was aware of it.
I was like 15 up until recently for Jim.
We had some campaigns though. Jim got some sort of campaigns, and we played. We played that game. This is just all boring content, isn't it? But we played a game where you and Adam went to Jim's house, and I was. This was like the start of online D&D, where I was there via a tablet. It was just a face at the end of the table.
Yeah.
That was the Mines. Is it the Mines of Felindor sort of?
Mines of Fallon.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, we played Descent as well, didn't we? We played a couple of
Descent a lot as well. Descent, yeah, with Austin and Burge.
Yeah,
that's great. So we played. We dabbled in tabletop for
Burge.
15 years.
Remember that name?
Yeah. Remember that name.
Later.
He will join us later.
Burge will.
Yeah, I pretty much started with you guys. When I was younger, I was obsessed with reading the books and wishing one day I'd have friends to play it with, and my wish came true.
Luke was there to give you the call when we were.
Yeah, he was.
When COVID happened,
he summoned me.
And I fondly remember when we were first having our chats, and Jim was like, "Oh, I don't have to be the DM every week." I was like, "I'm sure y'all would make a great DM." And you're like, "No, I'm not doing that." And then like 2 weeks later, I've written a 12-hour campaign.
Yeah. Oh, did you regret that saying that phrase,
no,
Phil?
I'm so glad you took up the mantle, man.
Rue the day.
You kept the flame burning.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I just didn't want it to end. Fundamentally, I just didn't want it to end. So I was willing to do anything. That wasn't required.
We have a live session with Jim, the original DM, at some point in the next month or so.
We do. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Actually, I'm really interested in the Jenga-based system he's got us going on, the Judge Dredd system. It's gonna be cool.
So, you can.
But funnily enough, Fate, this one, bringing it back to Fate, is the basis of a lot of other games. And Fate actually made an Alien game before this new Alien one came out. So there's an Alien Fate system out there.
Really?
Which is it's really cool. So we'll delve into it anyway because I've got.
Yeah.
It's not long. I'm just being honest with you. It's not long. All these slides are just like really quick. So this is basically like a setup now. So what I want from you guys for next week is fleshed out characters. We're gonna have a session 0 next week where we just introduce your characters. You tell us all the aspects of your oh my God, the washing machine is going to go absolutely bananas, so I apologise for that now. But you guys will have to introduce your characters and show us all the bits of the character sheet. So let's get into it. Right, the fundamental basics. Here's Top Hat Dog again. Levity. As a whole, it's a cooperative game, so we as a trio take control of the story. So I'm the GM in that I decide the difficulty of tasks. But that's pretty much where I stop. We agree on a narrative going forward. That's how it works. So unlike D&D, where you win, where you like fail or succeed, and like that then like decides where the story goes. In this, essentially, like we collectively decide where the story goes depending on the role that you roll. It's completely custom in that your characters, your moves, they're all made by you. And it works in scenes. So it's presented like TV shows. So it's good for us with all that righty stuff. It's presented like scenes. So there's a lot of things that refresh at the end of a scene. You mark off all your points of or any damage you've taken, unless there's consequences. You mark them off at the end of a scene. So like you always have a certain set health pool, although it's not quite a health pool, going into fights. And then at the end of that fight, because the scene's finished, you have your health back. Just like in TV shows where like they never talk about a bruise they had in a previous fight.
Oh, wait, no, damn it! I thought the dryer would stop then. I will love you for eternity if you shut that dryer up.
Oh,
it's numbing your voice.
I'm writing a lot of bullet points at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Kate is going to murder me, but I've paused it. Right. Okay, so it's paused now. Nice and quiet. Serene. Okay, so in Fate, we do not use numbered dice. This is fairly interesting. I will find a system for us to be able to roll the dice, but these are what's referred to as Fate dice. It's essentially 4 D6s, as we would refer to them, but they don't have numbers on them. They have 2 faces that have a plus, 2 faces that have a minus, and 2 faces that are completely blank. You essentially roll them, add the pluses, subtract the minuses, ignore the blanks. So here's a little example in the bottom right there. So 2 pluses and a minus means you've got +1. Plus and a minus means you get a 0. All 3 pluses and a minus means you get +2. It's very easy to understand. This essentially is very similar to how GURPS worked, but GURPS relied on you rolling against someone else, and what the difference between the 2 rolls was what this essentially amounts to being. They just got rid of that whole I roll 3d6, you roll 3d6, and whatever the difference between our 2 rolls is, they just did use this, and it's a lot easier. And that's that. The character sheet. This is the easiest way to learn Fate, and this is what your main focus for the rest of the week will be. Here it is. Nice and simple, nice and clean. I'm going to, essentially, this entire PowerPoint now is just going to break this down, and it's really simple.
Okay.
So, firstly, yeah, it's a really nice thing. Firstly, you've got your ID. This has no bearing on the actual game. This is aesthetics. So it's your basic description. It's literally your name and a description of your character. So I like to use an example. So I'm going to use, throughout this, I'm going to use the example of James Bond. So the name would be James Bond. The description would be suave gentleman spy who likes drink and women. That's it. That's a description. It has no bearing on the game.
Physical descriptions, or is that optional?
If you want, it's entirely optional.
Or if it feels relevant, yeah. Okay.
If it feels relevant to you, then absolutely. When we session 0 this, I am going to ask you for physical descriptions and stuff anyway. So you can put it there to remind yourself, or you can just have it somewhere else. Essentially, this is going to be for you. I'm going to try and display your character sheet for the audience. So maybe having something there might be nice, so that if someone is joining new, they'd be able to read and figure out what your character is. But they're going to sort of pick that up from how you play them anyway. But the most important part of your character, by a metric mile, is their aspects. Aspects is a huge part of Fate. It is essentially, your character has aspects, situations can have aspects, NPCs have aspects, you can get aspects put upon you. They're essentially like anything different about your character, and they're usually very, very vague terminology that you can call upon later. I'm going to delve into how aspects are used first, and then I'm going to give you descriptions of them, so examples of them. So, for example, right, they're far more important fundamental mechanics of your character. I'll give you quick examples now, just so that you're on the same wavelength. So as you can see in that aspect, the very top one's got high concept, and the other 4 are called troubles. So the high concept is your character in a nutshell. It's the most vague terminology you can use for your character. So for my example of James Bond, his high concept might be gentleman spy. That's it. As simple as that. And I'll jump into the next one now. So with that aspect that we've got in our heads now, gentleman spy, he can invoke that aspect or compel that aspect. And it's all terminology. All it is that you call upon that aspect in a positive or negative means for your character. So you'll essentially be invoking or compelling an aspect with regularity. Characters aren't the only thing with aspects. Environments can have it, and as well as NPCs. You spend fate points, similar to the Monster of the Week points, to invoke an aspect agreed on by a GM. Spending a fate point grants you the following benefit. So, for example, let's use Gentleman Spy. James Bond walks into a bar, and he wants to convince the barman to give him some information. Like, you walk up to that barman, and I would get you to roll, just like you would do in D&D, a charisma roll, and you roll, and say you roll poorly, right? Or even if you don't roll poorly, say you roll well, but you want the story to go a different way, you go, actually, because my character's a gentleman spy, he'd have done this a million times, I'd like to invoke that aspect at this point, spend a fate point, so that I can change the story because my character is how he is. And that would give you a +2 to your current skill roll after you roll the dice. So you can do it after you roll. You can re-roll the dice, or you can pass +2 to your mate.
Okay.
And you essentially, invoking an aspect can be anything you want. Like, it can be very, very broad. Like, that's why you should be as vague as possible with your high concept and the rest of them. Like, one example I had, and I'll show you later on, is one of my other aspects was that my character was a gun nut, right? That's all it was. The words gun nut. That is it. He was nuts for guns. That's it. And in an example I'll show you later, he comes upon someone and he wants to disarm them, but he rolls poorly. And he would then go, actually, because my guy's a gun nut, I feel like he'd be able to disarm someone better because he knows how the gun works.
So instead of that, though, I mean, you might get to this anyway, but would that aspect already be on your sheet, or you were saying in this in the moment that, oh, actually,
no, it's already on your sheet.
Right,
We're going
okay.
to craft these aspects. So, and I'm going to delve into that in a bit, so I'm not skipping it over. But for example, my example for James Bond would be his high concept gentleman spy. His other aspects might be penchant for drink or alcoholic, maybe. Yeah. Womanizer might be another one. And I might put like proficient with guns. Those are my 4, and any of those 4 are vague terms that I can then call upon later on. So if James Bond was wanting to shoot someone and he got a bad roll, you could invoke an aspect going, oh, because because James Bond is proficient with guns, I feel like I should be able to spend a fate point. I would go, that's absolutely fair, and we would do that. So you're essentially like convincing me that your character would be better at doing a certain thing because of the way he is.
How much scope is there for like completely retconning the scene? So, for example, if the person you were shooting was a woman, could you switch to a different aspect and say, actually, I'm not going to try and shoot her, I'm going to shoot? Yeah, would that be fair game?
A fair game. It's back and forth between us. This is how it's like more cooperative with the story, because it's how the story is crafted. Because these fate points, you spend them to invoke them in your favor, but the only way to get them back is to compel them against you. So in that instance, Phil, if you wanted to shoot a woman and James Bond was a womanizer, you could go, actually, I feel like my character in this instance would miss because he's shooting a woman and he doesn't necessarily want to shoot a woman. And in that instance, you'd get a fate point back. So it's all about like a delicate balance between like having your character do good things because of his aspects and bad. But we'll delve into it in a bit anyway, and add a +2 to any source of passive opposition if it's reasonable that the aspect you're invoking can contribute to making things more difficult, blah, blah, blah. It's essentially +2 is what you get from... You do this after a roll because it makes sense. Why would you do it before a roll? Unless you wanted to. So... I've gone through this, but James Bond, our gentleman spy with a penchant for drink and a sucker for a pretty face, finds himself in a bar with a burly Russian. The Russian knows where the jewels Bond is looking for are. Bond's player rolls to persuade the Russian, but fails. Recognizing Bond's penchant for drink could come into play here, Bond's player then suggests invoking his aspect to challenge the Russian to a drinking competition for the information. He spends a fate point and is allowed to re-roll his current roll or immediately +2 to it. He succeeds and gets the information through the drinking competition. You see how the narrative there was changed because James Bond's character thought of a way to do it where more reasonable to his character. this is what we'll be doing a lot, and this is why I was saying that me and Luke are going to get in some fucking heinous arguments. But like, I'm always going to want to. My priority is the narrative. I want it to be an interesting story. So like, this is a very much a tit for tat. So, situation can have aspects as well. They can be invoked and compelled just the same. So, for example, if someone had ice powers, for example, and they were to freeze the ground, I would put an aspect on the situation where it would have icy floors. And then you guys, instead of invoking your own aspects, you'd be able to invoke that situation aspect. You might be able to go, oh, because my character is an acrobat, he might be better on his feet on the ice than the other person. So I feel like he should be able to +2 to this roll because of that. It'll become clearer. So that's exactly. So a player with suckers on their feet in a room with the aspect icy floor might be able to invoke the situation aspect on an attack roll against a fighter, as the fighter would be less sure-footed than he is. That's it. So fate points refresh, but they don't refresh at the end of a scene. They refresh at the end of an encounter. In our case, I'm going to have them refresh at the end of a planet or like a space station. And you've got a specific refresh rate. Just for keeping it simple, you go into a planet with 3 fate points that you can use. So you can call upon 3 fate points. To get them back, you have to compel an aspect against yourself. So let's use Phil, if he's still using it, smuggler character. No spoilers, but like you wanted to, like you were thinking of maybe doing a smuggler character.
Yeah.
Let's say he was a bit like greedy. Yeah. You could have greedy be one of the aspects. Greedy could be used to like, oh, because my character so desperately wants the gold, I feel like he should have +2 on being able to jump across these buildings because there's gold on the other side of the buildings. That works. Okay. Whereas against yourself, you would go, oh, because my character's so greedy, I don't think he would be willing to part with this much money, so I think he would fail this charisma encounter. And that's how you would get fate points back. So you see there's like a little dance. You spend fate points to be able to bring him back. And what it also means is that towards the end of that planet, because you refresh at the end of the planet, you get all your fate points back at the end of the planet. It means you guys are going to do cooler shit towards the end of the planet because you have fate points to spend and you know you're going to get them back. So as you're the great escape from the planet, you're running off. That's when you'll be spending fate points and doing really cool stuff as you escape, which adds to the narrative drama, makes it more interesting, and knowing that you're going to refresh. So James Bond. So this is another James Bond example. James Bond is fighting a female assassin. James Bond player suggests that his sucker for a pretty face aspect would make him lose the fight, which is referred to as conceding, as he'd be distracted. The GM then offers James Bond's player a consequence. James Bond is knocked out and the jewel is taken from him. If the player accepts this, he receives a fate point back. So you'd suggest a way that one of your aspects should go bad for you, and I'd go, okay, because of that, this might happen. And if you're okay with it, then you'd get your fate point back. So there's a lot of like, your characters are like good and bad in equal measure. They have their like ups and downs like they do in a real story. We're going to discuss the consequences, but remember that drama is a fundamental building block of a good story. You'll also get fate points for conceding. So if you feel like your character would fundamentally lose a fight regardless, you can concede that fight, get captured, because it's always interesting, you know, like I always found that the most irritating thing with D&D. So like in one of my D&D sessions, I had intended for you guys to go to a city state and get captured, but as soon as I get you to a roll initiative, you guys are going to attack like a maniac and more than likely succeed. So it's really hard to like narratively have you guys be captured, taken to jail, and have this cool jailbreak happen when you are fundamentally just going to fight to your deaths against these swaths of guards. So this means that if you concede, then it doesn't mean that like game over, oh, the story's over. It means that you're going to get dragged to the back and interrogated, and there's going to be more to the story. So yeah, terminology wise, you invoke an aspect for yourself and compel one against yourself, but that's all terminology. I think I'm practically going to use invoke for both, but if you wanted to use the proper terminology, you can. Top Hat Dog is back. That was a really boring set of slides. Top Hat Dog.
No, it's cool. Like I say, it's pretty core to the system, isn't it?
Yeah,
The core system.
Yeah. So
can I ask a couple of quick questions?
Yes, you can.
So the aspects, do we have 5 aspects in total?
Yes. One high concept.
Pardon?
For one high concept, which is, it's kind of not an aspect. The high concept is the fundamental, and we're going to talk about it right now. One of them is called the high concept. It's literally like the very concept of your character boiled down to as little words as possible. And you call upon that as an aspect. So, alien bounty hunter might be a high concept. Yeah? So, your alien bounty hunter. And that's your main aspect, so that you can call upon alien bounty hunter. So the argument is, a lot of the time is going to be, because my character is an alien bounty hunter, I feel he should be able to do X. And if I agree with you, I'd go, yes, that's fair, spend a fate point to succeed on that roll or to add +2 to it. There's still an opportunity, remember, there's still an opportunity for failure, because adding +2 or re-rolling doesn't always mean that you succeed.
Guarantee, yeah, of course.
But it's still there, you know what I mean? Like, you get the advantage because of the character that you are. Your other ones are referred to as troubles, and I'll delve into them. There's a massive list of some of them, aspects online, loads of really good suggestions. Like Rogue's Luck was one that I quite liked, and literally that's it. Rogue's Luck was the terminology for it, and someone online said like an Indiana Jones character would have that, Rogue's Luck, because you could invoke it to be lucky in certain scenarios, like Indiana Jones is. Like, you fall, but you land exactly where you need to be. But you could also compel it against yourself by saying, fucking my luck is that I land right in the fire, so I'm going to compel myself in this instance, and I'm going to land ass first on the sconce of a flaming sconce or whatever. You know, like, you can you can call it the best problems, and I'm delving into this later, but the best problems are ones that you can invoke and compel against yourself in equal measure. You don't want your trouble shouldn't be like all round badass, because although all round badass might be good, because that might mean you might be shit at like sympathizing with someone, so you can compel that against yourself there. So, but you want one that you can get fate points back with and spend fate points in equal measure.
Yeah.
Right. So, but firstly, we'll delve into high concept. High concept. Your character in a nutshell. Don't be specific here. And I'll show you an example as to why. Or Top Hat Dog. I'll show you an example as to why.
Credit where it's due.
Specific. Generic. High concept. Specific. Swordsman of the Varuth Empire. Slayer of Empyrean Klargoths.
Love it.
Badass swordsman. GM. You come upon a group of bandits. They engage you in a sword battle. Oh, I'm a swordsman of the Varuth Empire. I've vast experience fighting Empyrean Klargoths. I feel I could invoke this aspect. Yes, but these aren't Empyrean Klargoths, so I don't think it applies. You come upon a group of bandits. They engage you in a sword battle. Oh, I'm a badass swordsman. I should be able to good at this. I'll invoke that aspect. Sounds about right. Go for it, John. You're such a good GM, Yola Roberts. Oh, stop it. So, like, you see how...
I should have called Luke.
Yeah. So making it vague works better for you, because it's like less, it narrows it down less for you, and it makes it like, so me personally, that badass swordsman one isn't a bad one, because like when you think of badass swordsman, a certain character appears in your head, so you'd be able to invoke that against yourself as well, because I imagine a sort of like a kind of emotionless guy, not very sympathetic, kind of hardened.
Yeah.
So you'd be able to go, because my guy's a badass swordsman, I don't feel he'd be able to sympathize with this character at this point. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Next up are the troubles. Now, I really dislike the terminology troubles. I really dislike it. But from a narrative standpoint, they usually are represented as troubles. But I would prefer that they would just call them aspects. So these are just 4 other aspects your character has.
Okay.
They're very similar to high concept, except they describe other aspects of the character, and they aren't always negative, because the word problem seems to have a negative connotation. I will show you. I'll run through a massive list of potential aspects later, so you can understand them. Troubles. Troubles aren't always negative, but are other aspects that define your character. These usually take the form of problems. There are examples online, but these are just lesser concepts for your character. Indiana Jones is rogue. High concept might be adventuring archaeologist. Problems might be checkered past, would mean that you'd have a lot of enemies in the different places. Rogue's luck, which I described earlier. Bullheaded usually wins an argument but can alienate people socially. These are like just like kind of like other aspects of your character. Very generic. Gun nut. What is another one? I had one that was like a cop. An example I have later on is a cop that's new to NYC. So I put new to NYC because that campaign all took place in New York. So new to NYC would be an aspect that you could call upon to, like, I don't know, get along with someone else that isn't from NYC but could compel against himself by getting lost and not being able to like track someone. There are loads of examples, and I'll run through them in a second, because they kind of go hand in hand with your skills. Because as you are aware, as you guys make a character, you're going to make aspects and skills that match each other because you're making them for the same character. So what Fate Core has done is provided a handy-dandy list of aspects that go well with skills that you're going to prioritize. So say you guys...
Where's this list? What's it called?
I'll run through it. I'll run through it in a second, mate. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
So a good problem is one that you can invoke and a compel in equal measure.
Just a quick note back on the high concepts and troubles. So obviously we've got the high concept down, that's fine. Does the trouble encapsulate the other 4 blocks, or is trouble just... Yeah, okay.
All 4.
So
all
you have
4
5
troubles.
aspects.
You have 5 aspects.
Okay.
One high concept.
One is your high concept, and the other 4 is like other aspects your character has. James Bond example and stuff like that. So let's, you know what, instead of like messing about too much, actually, you know what, I will carry on for a bit, because the reason I want to carry on for a bit, and this might seem the perfect time to stop down and introduce aspects to you, but I want to delve into the skills section first, because aspects correlate with skills, and I'm going to run through really good aspects for characters with certain skills. So next up is skills. Okay, these are your more generic D&D type skills: sleight of hand, deception, persuasion. Exactly them, but there's a different list. Fate, this is by far the system behind this is my favorite part of Fate. I love this system so much. So you get if you can see the ones highlighted in bold, that's what you start with. You get one great one that adds +4 to the roll. You get 2 good ones, which add +3, 3 fair ones, which add +2, and 4 average, which adds +1.
So you get 10 skills. That's great.
10 skills, yeah. All the other ones are referred to as mediocre, and they give you +0 to the roll. And here are the skills. Okay? Athletics. Burglary.
Hang on, are these are finite skills that we have to choose from?
These are a list of skills that you choose from. Simple as that. You choose 10 of these.
That's great.
And I guess you could put a slightly more like a role play tint on it in terms of how it relates to your character a bit more than the vagueness.
So I'm going to jump back. So I'll delve into them a bit more. What was happening here? Internal error. Oh, what's happening here? Can I go to another one? Internal server error. Right, I'm getting an internal server error. Right, it doesn't matter then. I'll just run through them, okay? Athletics, burglary, contacts, crafts, deceive, drive, empathy, fight, investigate, law, notice, physique, provoke, rapport, resources, shoot, stealth, will. Right?
Cool.
Out of all them, fight and shoot will be the 2 that you primarily use in combat. Although ideally you use them all. You find different other ways of fighting, because
use your physique or whatever.
Yeah, physique. Yeah. Fate is very much not a combat-oriented game. It's more of a narrative combat. So you can shoot, you can fight, but most combat will be solved through like clever, like funniness. Mm-hmm. Physique and will affects your health, but it's not health. I'll explain as to... so you can imagine in a combat scenario, you've got you, the attacker, and a defender. Or let's say you're the defender and there's an attacker. The attacker would roll his fate dice, you'd roll your fate dice, and there'd be a difference between those 2 numbers. That difference, depending on the severity of that difference, you can absorb that blow or you can't. So if there's a 2-point difference, everyone can tick it off. If there's a 4-point difference, everyone can tick it off. If you've got more physique or will, you'd be able to absorb blows that are 6 points different or 8 points different.
Okay.
And that's like a big deal. Like, so if he rolls and you roll and there's a 4-point difference between both your rolls, someone with a higher physique would be able to absorb that roll. And let's see if this website works now, because for some reason I was not getting this to work. There we go. Okay, so athletic skill represents your character's general level of physical fitness, whether through training, natural gifts, or genre-specific means. So essentially, this is why I was going to go through stunts. If you were to make an athletic character, right, here are some suggested aspects. Sprinter. You move 2 zones for free in a conflict without rolling instead of 1, provided there are no situation aspects restricting movement. Hardcore parkour. +2 to overcome actions with athletics if you're in a chase across rooftops.
Hang on, sorry. These aren't skills. Are these that you?
This is aspects. This was aspects that might apply to.
No. Ignore me. They were stunts. Ignore me. Ignore me. They were stunts. I read them wrong. Yeah. So that's another thing altogether. Ignore me. That's a mistake on my part. So athletics, you could kind of read into it. Athletics is your like ability to move. Burglary is your ability to pick locks, steal stuff. Contacts is your like ability to have friends in the know. Like you can use your like vast pool of contacts for any sort of thing. Anything that your mind can conjure that contacts can do. Crafts is your ability to make stuff. So in an RPG campaign, it might be your ability to sort of blacksmith new weapons. In this one, it'll probably be like fixing robots, fixing the ship and stuff. Deceive is your ability to lie. Drive is your ability to sort of like push through pain and physical limitations and so on, and your ability to drive pilot. Empathy is you're able to sort of like empathize with your character. Fight is your main punchy slashy one. Investigate is you actively looking for something. Lore is kind of like D&D's history. Notice is perception in D&D. It would be like your ability to notice things that you're not actively investigating. So the ability to sort of like not be pounced upon from behind by like an attacker. Physique is your like health pool for physical attacks. Provoke is your ability to sort of like antagonize and maybe intimidate. Rapport is your ability to sort of like become friends. Resources is your pool of resources, the amount of stuff that you can get a hold of quickly. Shoot is your ability to shoot from distance. Stealth is your stealth. And will is affects your health pool when it comes to mental stress. Because in this game you have a health pool and a mental health pool. So there's 2 health pools that you have for physical and mental stress. In this game, they consider like active bad conversations or arguments to have an effect on your mental health. So if you're getting interrogated, it's not so much a fight as it is like a mental combat. They're attacking you mentally. Yeah. And this bit here is the bit that I think is freaking genius, right? And Top Hat Dog's bag. So we're back.
Top Hat Dog.
So as you can see, those highlighted black ones are in a specific shape. Leveling up, which you'll do at the end of every planet. Every planet you will get a level up. You add +1 to a skill. However, there's a catch, right? You can't have more skills at the top than you do at the bottom.
So you kind of need to build a pyramid with it, essentially.
So yeah, you always have to represent some form of a pyramid. So if you want to upgrade your great move to superb, you'll need to gain another average skill and steadily work these lesser skills upwards. But don't worry, you'll gain skill points a lot more often than D&D. So I've used example, right? All those are examples. This guy's a very stealthy boy. He can't just put stealth up to superb without there being a bottom. So he'd have to add an average skill. So he adds will. He then moves crafts up that way, and then will would move there. He then moves empathy up, and crafts would move there, and then he's able to move shoot to great, and empathy moves that way. You can't have more on top than you can below. So to be able to get shoot up to great, you'd have to do that.
So in terms of, there's 11 skills selected there out of like the 18 available. Is that always, you can't add any additional skills once you pick those initial ones?
You can.
Or
No,
is
you
it?
can. You can add,
You can as well, yeah.
add skills. You add skills to average. So there's two different forms of leveling up. There's minor milestones and major milestones. I'll discuss these with you later on. But minor milestones allow you to just swap skills over as you wish. But major milestones allow you to add a new average skill. So you can add a new average skill, and that'll allow you to.
So I guess the
upwards.
other 7 are kind of in the invisible mediocre line below average, I suppose, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's like an invisible line below that has every other skill that you're just pushing upwards. You can gain a skill only in a major milestone, but in minor milestone, that's when you'll be moving them. But you have to move them each minor milestone. So it's going to take you a considerable amount of time to get another skill up to great. So it just shows like your character slowly developing his other skills until one of them becomes greater.
Yeah,
at the end
sense.
of each planet, I'm going to give you a minor milestone. And every time you travel through the Penrose Triangle, you're going to get a major one. So
that's like end of an area sort of thing.
End of an area sort of thing. So levels and end of area is exactly the way I'm thinking of it.
Sounds good. Just
yeah.
go grab something. Just 2 seconds, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. Go for it.
Carry on.
Probably nice for a little break now, anyway.
I've already chosen all of my
skills.
All of my skills I've chosen. I'll have to have a think about the aspects.
Aspects are harder. Like honestly, have a look at some of the fate aspects.
I've got a fantastic one for my high concept one. It's so vague. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, that's ace, mate. Because like they can be like story based ones. Like one of them is like my father's bloodstained sword. So character aspects, they can be significant personality traits or beliefs. So sucker for a pretty face, never leave my man behind. The only good Sicyntian is a dead Sicyntian. So like you can really hate a
Sorry about
race.
that.
That's fine. I was just telling Luke now, Phil. Character aspects can be very broad to the point that it could be like a possession or noticeable feature. So it can be a personality trait. It can be a profession or a background. So it could be like born a spacer, cybernetic street thief. It can be a possession, my father's bloodstained sword, dressed to the nines, sharp-eyed veteran. It could be a relationship to a person or an organization, the king's favor. Problems, goals, or issues the character is dealing with, a price on my head, the king must die, fear of heights, or it could be titles, reputations, or obligations the character might have. Self-important merchant, guildmaster, silver-tongued scoundrel, honor bound to avenge my brother. Literally, like any story thing you can think of, essentially. There's a fucking huge list of them. After aspect examples, right? Here's some examples ones which I'll add to the Skype quickly now. Actually, I won't because it'll mess up my camera. But if you go to Evil Hat, is the guys who make Fate. They've got loads of aspect examples. Have a look at them. See what like ones you like, and just come up with ones for yourself. They're pretty generic. We'll discuss it in the week. So if you send me like some ideas. Oh, have I lost you guys?
No.
No. Luke's is not moving.
I'm still here. You hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you, mate. It's just that your camera's not moving on this thing. So give me 1 second. Just going to.
Oh, the cameras are on. People can see us.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes, bro.
Oh no.
Oh my God, what's happened to you, mate? Doesn't like you at all at the moment.
Which one?
Technical difficulties. Luke's is gone altogether. I don't know why.
I'm still here.
There we go. There you are. Okay, it's sorted.
He's alive.
Right. To further compound this is stunts. These are the things your character can do at a moment's notice. Moves you can do in the game. You get 3 for free. This is why I was talking about the refresh rate earlier. Let's take it as 3. So you can have up to 5 at the cost of your refresh rate. So you get 3 for free. If you want to add 1 more, it'll cost you 1 point of refresh. If you want 5, it'll cost you, so you literally only have 1 point of aspect. So the thing that they're saying is like, you can choose one of 2 ways of going about it. You could choose to have less moves and more fate points to invoke your aspects, or you can have less points to invoke your aspects and more moves. So the character that can do a lot can't invoke a lot, and the character that can invoke a lot can't do a lot, if you know what I mean. So a character that has like moves like hardcore parkour, or like an ability to shoot from like a marksman that can shoot from a distance, is less likely to be able to invoke like an aspect like that he has, like a sucker for a pretty face or whatever, because he's practically less social. So yeah, you can have 3 or 5. Each one past 3 takes away from your refresh rate, but that only means refresh rate. You can still gain more fate points than your refresh rate by compelling aspects against yourself. So you might just, if you wanted to, take 5 stunts at the start of every encounter, compel aspects against yourself to amass yourself like 3-4 aspect points, and then spend them as normal. Because the refresh rate, fate points, that's what I meant, sorry, yeah. The refresh rate.
I thought there was another set of points than that.
No. It's as simple as that, mate. Sorry. Refresh rates don't take away. They only refresh up. So if you've got 3 and you've spent 1 and you've got 2, it refreshes to 3. If you've got 4 at the end of an encounter, it doesn't refresh to 3. It stays at 4. So any extra you've gained, you keep.
Sorry. Hang on 1 minute.
That's fine.
We're streaming this. Don't come in and start fucking showing me. That's on the video.
So
how's
yeah.
the weather over there?
Well, shut up! Stupid dog. Dog!
Oh, 1 minute.
Intermission.
Yeah, are you following so far?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So if you take the additional stunts, you lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It boils down to aspects, skills, and stunts. Aspects are like the things that make your character a thing.
On the note there on the slide, is that 4 stunts makes it 2, 5 stunts makes it 1, rather than skills?
Yes. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's
cool.
my
That's
mistake.
all right. Just making sure I'm following right.
Yeah.
So what does refresh rate mean? Do you mean like you can change your stunts?
No. So you see up here on the square here.
Yeah.
Is that your baseline of?
That's your baseline amount of fate
For
points.
spending on aspects.
So, for example, okay, you land on a planet, and you've only got 3 stunts. You have 3 of those, and then like you walk along, and then you want to go. Oh, I want to invoke my gunner aspect.
A stunt costs a fate point.
No.
But it negates of having it from your refresh rate if you have additional.
If you have additional ones, a stunt is something you just do. You can just.
So you can either have more refresh fate points in your pool, which is your refresh rate, or you can have more stunts readily available, but that'll mean you've got a lower refresh rate. Is that right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if you have 5 stunts, you'd only have, was it 1 or 2?
1.
1. You have 1 fate point and have to wait for your refresh rates or compel it back.
Yeah.
Whoa! What's happened to my camera?
Oh, it's back now.
It's good to see.
Back to you.
You can see me.
Yeah.
We got you, babe. No, it makes sense. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, you disappeared for a second there, though.
Oh, now he's gone. That's weird.
Now he's gone. Hey, you're back now. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. So
Yes.
I'll delve into what stunts are, and then we'll talk about it, right? So you can have you can have more stunts at the cost of your refresh. Your refresh rate is all that does is give you points back at the end of a planet. So you land on a planet, you have 3, you'll spend 2, compel 1 against yourself, and you have 2. At the end of that planet,
So
it'll go back up to 3.
So if I have 5 stunts, I will only get 1 point refresh, right?
Which is 1 point fate,
One
but you
point,
can also
but-
compel
But
fate
you
into
can
yourself.
compel past that 1. Anything you gain over 1 it doesn't refresh down at the end of the planet. So say you end that planet on 3 and your refresh rate is 1, you'd stay at 3. You never get
if I end that planet on 4, I carry on with 4.
You carry on with like
You don't
it
lose until you spend
doesn't
them.
your refresh rate is then not permanently 4, but refresh doesn't mean that it takes any away from you.
Even not spend, so you don't have to spend them to keep. You just keep them until you use
But
them.
keep in mind that means that you lose out on 3 fate points. If you've got, if from my perspective, if I had 3 fate points and coming towards the end of an encounter, and look, let's say I had 4. I have 4 coming towards the end of a planet. I have 4.
Yeah,
I would fucking spend. I would spend them like a maniac.
But then if your refresh rate is only 1,
I was just meant that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's just so if you've conceded, compelled an aspect against yourself enough, there's a chance you finish a planet with more fate points than you refresh. That's just summarizing that. Okay. Creating stunts. This is another hard bit. This is a bit tricky, but it's somewhat good that we did a bit of GURPS as they follow a similar formula. It's not as simple as electro ball. I can shoot electric out my fingers to kill people. They're not like kill straight away moves.
Yeah.
So here are some example ones, right? In my other campaign that I was planning to do, I was planning to use superpowers. One way a guy had superpowers incorporated into his world is that he agreed on certain superpowers corresponding to certain skill. So athletics might correspond to your super speed ability. So anytime you wanted to use your super speed ability, you'd roll athletics. So in this instance, we've agreed that a telekinesis person's power is based on the law skill. So anytime he wants to use his telekinesis, he uses law. So his stun would be telekinetic throw. Can shoot objects using law. This would allow the character to throw things at people without having to use the shoot skill, which he doesn't have that much proficiency in. Stunts generally follow a... your stunts don't only change the skill you'll be using. You can have your stunt use fate points. So mind read. Once per scene, you can spend a fate point to roll against the target, representing the reading of their mind. For every shift, and we refer to the word shift is the difference between your role and their role. You can create an aspect, but you only get 1 for free. So you can create like an aspect that you know a secret about him. And if you create that aspect, then that aspect can be invoked. Because I know the secret for this, a super secret of him, I'd be able to convince him to do X or Y. This is the generic formula. There are others, and you really should look into stunts. But these are the generic things that stunts can do. They can swap a skill roll. So say you've got like a lot of points in shoot, and you wanted to make a knife throwing character, or you could like have a skill where like instead of using fight for knives, you could use shoot, and then you'd be like a knife throwing maniac. You can use a fate point to do something extra. So the stunts, you can spend fate points, but they're to do something amazing. Or you can add +2 to rolls in very specific scenarios. So those are the 3 like formulas for making a stunt. Add +2 in specific scenarios. So let's, for example, say if you're going to use the drive thing for piloting, if you wanted to make an expert space pilot, when in space, I get you could call the stunt expert space pilot, and then the description would be +2 to rolls to drive rolls when piloting a ship in outer space, and there's your stunt. So you'd be able to pull that out whenever you want, and it essentially makes your character immediately good at flying in space. But only in space. So if you were on the planet, you couldn't invoke that aspect, because otherwise you could see how it'd be overpowered.
Just in terms of creating a character, why would you have that as that could also be an aspect though, couldn't it? Expert space.
You could have that. Could also be could be an aspect. But in stunts, normally, like in that instance, it's free to use. Mm-hmm. So you have it be a stunt when it's free. So
you can't be too powerful. It's kind of like cantrips versus level 1 spells, I suppose.
It's interesting.
Yeah. There is room to discussion. We don't want them to be overpowered and game breaking, but not utterly useless. So like it's a discussion. Bob and weave. We'll be replacing them a lot. You can take one out.
That's figured out in the character creation process, is it?
Yeah. So we'll do that this week. So I'm going to give you now stunt examples for each skill, right? So athletics. This is what I was reading earlier by mistake. Okay. So someone who has athletics as their highest skill might have a sprinter, as I read earlier. Hardcore parkour, +2 to overcome actions with athletics if you're in a chase across rooftops. Dazing counter. When you succeed with style on a defend action against an opponent's fight roll, you automatically counter with some sort of nerve punch or stunning blow. You get to attach the daze situation aspect to your opponent with a free invoke instead of just a boost. So essentially that's another like a really specific one. Burglary. Always a way out. +2 on burglary rolls made to create an advantage whenever you're trying to escape from a location. Nice one. Security specialist. You don't have to you don't have to be present to provide active opposition to someone trying to overcome security measures you put in place or worked on. Talk the talk. You can use burglary in place of contacts whenever you're dealing specifically with other thieves or burglars. So stunts work really well when you know your skills. If you knew your skill was like shoot, you want to be able to use shoot in as much instances as possible. So you would then try to think of a stunt that instead of like when talking to other marksmen, you don't have to use a charisma check. You can use a shoot check or whatever. Contacts. Let's see the contact ones. Ear to the ground. Whenever someone initiates a conflict against you in an area where you've built a network of contacts, you use contacts instead of notice to determine turn order because you got tipped off in time. So that's another thing, is notice is the main thing for initiative order. Rumour monger, +2 to create an advantage when you plant vicious rumours about someone else. The weight of reputation. You can use contacts instead of provoke to create advantages based on the fear generated by the sinister reputation you've cultivated for yourself and all the shady associates you have. So that's like another cool one.
Yep.
Crafts. I'm not going to run through all these. It's getting a bit boring, but I'll just quickly like run through some of them. Always making useful things. You don't ever have to spend a fate point to declare that you have the proper tools for a particular job using crafts, even in extreme situations like being imprisoned or separated from all your stuff. This source of opposition is just off the table. Better than new. Whenever you succeed with style on an overcome action to repair a piece of machinery, you can immediately give it a new situation aspect with a 3 invoke, reflecting the improvements you've made instead of just a boost. Surgical strikes. When using crafts in a conflict involving machinery, you can filter out unwanted targets from whole zone attacks without having to divide up your shifts. Let's go for deceive. Because there'll be some good ones. Lies upon lies. +2 to create a deceive advantage against someone who has believed one of your lies already during this session. So like you can lie again to someone with advantage. Mind games. You can use deceive in place of provoke to make mental attacks, as long as you can make up a clever lie as part of the attack. One person, many faces. Whenever you meet someone new, you can spend a fate point to declare that you've met the person before, but under a different name and identity. Create a situation aspect to represent your cover story, and you can use deceive in place of rapport whenever interacting with that person. So essentially you can just like become someone new. Drive. Let's see what drive's got. Hard to shake. +2 to drive whenever you're pursuing another vehicle in a chase scene. Good one. Pedal to the metal. You can coax more speed out of your vehicle than seems possible. Whenever you're engaged in any contest where speed is the primary factor, such as a chase or a race of some kind, and you tie with your drive roll, it's considered a success. Ramming speed. When ramming another vehicle, you ignore 2 shifts of damage. So if you ram and hit for 4 shifts, you only take 2 yourself. Empathy. Let's give this one a go. Lie whisperer. +2 to all empathy rolls made to discern or discover lies, whether directed at you or someone else. Nose for trouble. You can use empathy instead of notice to determine your turn order in a conflict, provided you've gotten a chance to observe or speak to those involved for at least a few minutes beforehand during this scene. So it's kind of like you figure them out. Psychologist. Once per session, you can reduce someone else's consequence by 1 level of severity. You need to talk with the person you're treating for at least half an hour in order for them to receive the benefits of the stunt, and you can't use it on yourself. So essentially you talk someone down from their mental consequences. Okay, fight. I'll stop there because you can do this yourself. Some fight stunts. Heavy hitter. When you succeed with style on a fight attack and choose to reduce the result by 1 to gain a boost, you gain a full situation aspect with a free invocation instead. Backup weapon. Whenever someone's about to hit you with a disarmed situation aspect or something similar, spend a fate point to declare you have backup weapon Instead of a situation aspect, your opponent gets a boost, representing the momentary distraction you suffer having to switch. Killing stroke. Once per scene, when you force an opponent to take a consequence, you can spend a fate point to increase the consequence severity. If your opponent was already going to take a severe consequence, he must either take a severe consequence and a second consequence or be taken out. And investigate. One last one. Attention to detail. You can use investigate instead of empathy to defend against deceive attempts. What others discover through gut reactions and intuition, you learn through careful observation and micro expressions. Eavesdropper. On a successful investigation roll to create an advantage by eavesdropping on a conversation, you can discover or create one additional aspect. The power of deduction. Once per scene, you can spend a fate point to make a special investigate roll representing your potent deductive faculties. For each shift you make on this roll, you discover or create an aspect, or either the scene or the target of your observations, though you may only invoke one of them for free. So yeah, I'm not going to carry on with that. They're all on the website, but a lot of these skills have stunts to go along with them, and there are a million of them online. Just type in Fate stunt examples, and there are a jillion of them. I swear to God, there are a jillion of them. Lastly, extras. Not lastly, actually, last but one. Extras, to be determined. Fate has modules like GURPS. I'm still reading the Spacebook. So once I figure out some extras that we can add from Spacebook, I might add them there. But from what I can read from the Spacebook, it just tells you how to run a space campaign rather than adding more stuff to it. There might be information of your ship there. I'm not sure yet. And lastly, this bottom bit, used in combat. It's similar to GURPS in that you don't really have health, but you have certain stresses for protecting yourself that can lead to consequences. So the bit on the left leads to the bit on the right. So it's essentially your HP, except in Fate you have both physical and health and mental health. Every player gets 2 points in each. So you can see that these ones marked in black, that's what you get automatically. The third, fourth slot grayed out, as these are only granted to you upon having certain skills. Physique deals with physical, will deals with mental. You get +1 if you have fair or average in these skills, +2 if you have good or higher. So you on the sheet, you would fill that 3 in so that it's not grayed out anymore. And what these essentially mean is that when you're fighting someone, and let's use the example of physical stress, right? I roll to attack Luke, I get a 4. Luke rolls to defend himself, he gets a 2. The difference is 2. So Luke would tick on his character sheet that 2. And we would describe it narratively as me swinging at you and you like deftly dodging it or blocking it with your shoulder so that there's some stress on your body, but you're not dead. I do it again. I roll a 3. You again roll to defend yourself. You roll a 2. There's a shift difference of 1. You tick the 1 box. You can tick boxes sort of like higher, but you can't tick. You can tick boxes. I think it's higher or not lower. Give me a second. I'll read this now. Shift value difference between your die and the die of the attacker. The stress boxes. Blah, blah, blah. Johnny is fighting Jim. Johnny rolls fight and gets a +3. Jim gets a +1. The difference between both rolls is 2 in the attacker's favour, meaning Jim has to mark the 2 box. If the 2 box is already filled, he has to mark off a higher box. So you can never lower. So essentially, like what physique lets you do and what will lets you do mentally is like absorb more of the shifts. If those boxes are already ticked, or you take a shift hit higher than any of those, you immediately go to consequences. And those consequences on that side, the 2, the 4, and the 6, represent the shift. So if I hit you so I roll a 4, Luke rolls a 0, the shift is 4, he's already got all his boxes ticked out, he would then receive a moderate consequence in that fight. And the moderate consequence is a new aspect, but it's a negative one. Right. So in a physical fight, it might be sprained ankle. It might be concussion. It might be burn on your arm. It might be a deep wound, deep cut. Obviously, they go from mild to severe, severe being like something that will really hinder you. And the thing about these aspects is that the attacker can invoke them. So the more consequences you have, the attackers still have to spend a fate point to invoke them, but they can use a fate point to invoke your consequence so that they can hit you easier. And you can do the same with an NPC. You hit an NPC hard enough, they got a consequence, like they've got a broken arm. You can then attack them again and say, because he's got a broken arm, he can't block this blow. I'm going to invoke an aspect, his aspect of broken arm. You'd roll for fight, add +2 to it, and you'd hit him again. But because he's got a broken arm, you're hitting him harder.
Okay.
Yeah? It'll come into play more when we actually have a combat encounter, but essentially makes it a bit more of an interesting story. There's no health. You have a severe consequence. It also means that like there's more incentive for you to concede if you're finding yourself getting your ass handed to you. But it's like more like you're fighting and you're willing to take certain consequences and you can be taken out. But in this game, there's no death. You just get KO'd and then you might wake up trapped to a chair or something. But you'll keep those consequences. So you mark off a higher one. So like if the 2's already marked off, you marking them all off. You can't, if you get like a shift difference of 1, you can't mark off the 2. You can mark off the 2-1, but if you get a shift difference of 3, you can't mark off the 1-1, if you know what I mean. Right. And then if you have all these ticked, then they automatically goes to consequences then.
So just humour me. So I've just been smacked and I've blah, blah, blah. I've got a consequence of I've got a broken nose. Yeah. So we're continuing on our journey and we happen upon a hospital, and can I get it removed in that way?
Yes, and I'm really grateful you put it that way. Consequences can get rid of as long as there's a narrative reason for them to do so.
So, like I said, a hospital, if I've got a broken nose, a hospital would be able to deal with that, but a first aid kit would not. It might be able to stop the bleeding, but it wouldn't be able to take away the consequence.
It is all narrative based. Right. The one thing I would say is that severe consequences will need you to obviously seek like proper medical attention, but Penrose Triangle gives you a major milestone. Major milestone, one of in the writing for major milestone is a severe consequence is on its way to mending, so you can reword a severe consequence so that it's on its way to mending. So what I would do in your instance, Luke, broken nose, perfect example. You've got a broken nose from a fight from before. You find a medical kit. I would then allow you to rewrite that consequence. So instead of it now being broken nose, it would be like nose is in a plaster, or like nose is like nose has recently been corrected or like fixed, so that when you go to a fight next time, they can invoke that aspect, but they can't invoke, like, obviously, like, it's not a broken nose anymore, but they might be able to sort of like identify that your nose is broken, or you'd be able to invoke that aspect yourself because you got a broken nose, you look a bit more badass, and someone might take you a bit more seriously. So it's like,
or on the flip side, I could use it for someone to take pity on me.
100%.
Right,
so like, all these aspects are like, the aspects of the thing that a building block of this entire game is aspects. Situations, NPCs, they all have aspects. And for an NPC, I'm going to throw like a generic henchman at you who's burlier than the rest, as James Bond always does. I'm going to give him the aspect of burly, and I'm going to play with that as much as I can. Me as a GM, I make the NPCs. My NPCs has a certain amount of fate points. It's 2 usually, and they all have aspects. So I'm going to call upon my aspects against you as well. So my burly guy, I might go, because my guy's burly, he might be better at blocking your blow. I'm going to invoke an aspect here so that when you throw a punch at me, my defense roll is +2 better. And it makes sense because he's burly. He'd be able to absorb the blow a bit better. So it fundamentally makes sense. Thank God, Top Hat Dog's bag. Mental stress, physical stress. Physical stress is stress gained from battle physical conflict, can lead to consequences such as sprained ankle, deep cut, dizziness. Can be evoked by player NPC by taking advantage of. NPC invokes your dizziness to strike you whilst you're wobbling about, adding +2 to their roll. I compel my dizziness as a reason for me not to be able to land the ship. So that's a compel so that you can get fate points back. Mental stress is stress gained from arguments, mental conflict, usually the provoke. So in a mental conflict, provoke is your fight. For example, you're being interrogated or are in an argument and you suffer a blow from the NPC's provocation, can lead to consequences such as still angry, self-doubt, shame, can be invoked by player NPC by taking advantage of. NPC invokes your anger to have you angrily reveal the location of your ship, +2 to his deception roll. It's not deception, but it would be like a, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I compel my self-doubt to not be able to pick this lock. So if you have been like argued with and you now have a self-doubt, you could now have a nice new reason for you to be able to get fate points back. You can also invoke and compel situation aspects. If you wanted a nice, like using my example of a situation aspect where the floor is a bit slippery, a nice, easy way for you to be able to get a fate point back is to go, my character's from a sand planet. He's not familiar with frozen things at all. He'd slip on his ass. Cool. I'm going to get you to slip on your ass. The consequence of that is that you fall prone, which gives you a new aspect. You're now prone. And you get a fate point back. So like, it's all like tit for tat. You see how it like kind of works? Like we're flowing, we're making a new story. The story is now that you've walked in, your character's unfamiliar with ice. He slipped on the floor. He's now prone. The NPC that I've created might be able to invoke your aspect of being prone to be able to better hit you with his hammer. And he might do more damage to you. You might be able to go, oh, because I'm a fucking badass space ranger, I'd be able to roll out the way. Cool, yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. You roll out the way of the thing, so roll +2 to your defend action. It's going to be a lot of that. A lot of, like, things as like that.
Well, still, you've only got 3 fate points, though, so it's going to be...
But you get fate points back for... So, like...
Yeah, for sure.
So, in that example I just gave, he got a +1 for slipping on the floor. He's going to get attacked. But then he's going to spend the one that he got for slipping on the floor to roll out the way.
+2.
Yeah. Consequences, a new aspect to player gains from taking too much stress in combat. An example of spraying ample. The player can go the free conversation. So the player that gave you the consequence gets a free invocation of this aspect. That's one thing that you need to make a note of, is that the NPC that gave you a sprained ankle can invoke that aspect for free. They don't have to spend a fate point on that first instance of invoking it. So consequence is a bit dangerous against the person that gave it to you. NPC who gave you the sprained ankle can choose to invoke it to gain the effects of a fate point in the next hit against you. At the end of a scene, all your stress boxes are wiped clean. So all those boxes that you ticked are wiped clean at the end of a scene. So each fight you go in, being able to block those same amount of blows.
Yeah.
But your consequences aren't. And as Luke said, obviously, like, it's narrative, how you fix yourself and all this stuff. And that's that. So essentially, so this is more bumf now. This might confuse you. Ignore this more than anything, because this comes naturally to most anyway. But Fate breaks down what you can do with aspects to overcoming something, creating an advantage, attacking or defending. Because remember, you can do certain things to create aspects. So you can choose to create an aspect. So in a battle now, that create an advantage one is a good one. In a fight, if you didn't want to just like straight up fight someone, and I said that you're in a room full of boxes and barrels, like maybe they're barrels full of like glassy orbs, you can decide to push one of the boxes to the ground, scattering glassy orbs on the ground, creating a situational aspect. There are now glassy orbs on the ground, which you can then use to maybe knock someone prone later on and stuff. You can create an advantage, and it's a lot of creating advantages in this game, creating aspects you can invoke to get the upper hand. So whenever you use a skill, you're usually doing any one of these: overcoming something, creating an advantage, attacking or defending. There are different scenarios for each, but they're fairly straightforward. Some skills can be used for all, others can't. For example, you can't use deceive to overcome something. You can use deceive to overcome, create an advantage and defend, but it's unlikely you're going to deceive to attack. But there are instances that you would. You might deceive someone else to attack another person. So like this is like a slide that kind of like attack skills are generally fight, shoot. Ignore that. That was pretty bump fun. But leveling up, this is an important one. 2 means of leveling, I said earlier, minor and major. To begin with, so this I said earlier, every time we go through a Penrose triangle, we're going to get major milestones. That's eventually, right? Because as you can expect, to explain the world, I'm going to have you jump through Penrose triangles a lot at the start before I set up properly. So they're going to be simple ones. They're going to be like single planet jumps. So you jump through a Penrose Triangle, land on a single planet, just to explain how it's going to work and us getting to grips with the thing. And then as soon as we jump away and I then give you an entire star system to explore, that's when every time you travel through one, you get major ones. So minor and major. This is the last slide now. Minor milestone, major milestone. Minor milestones. For each minor milestone, you can do one of the following. Switch the rank values of any 2 skills so you can swap them. Or replace one average +1 skill with one that isn't on your sheet. So any of the bottom row ones, you can swap them out with anything else. So if you find that you're not, like, your character's not really using one, or you're not fancying one on the average line, you can swap them out. Or you can swap any 2, so you can swap your great one with a good straight away. You could change. You could only do one of these, remember. You could change any stunt for another stunt. You could get a new stunt, but it does take away from your refresh rate. Or you can rename one character aspect that isn't your high concept, so you can change an aspect. That's for every minor milestone. So we can play around with your aspects. If you feel like you gained one from a galaxy, you can add one. So it works in that GURPS thing where I was going to give you new mods. You can like, oh, I came from there like a different person. You can add a new aspect of what your changes are. Most of these, without therapy, these will need to be at least pacifyingly justifiable to the story. I don't want you changing your kind-hearted aspect to utter arsehole without there being an in-game reason. Any moderate consequence you have, you can rename so that they're now on the road to recovery. So your broken ankle becomes a stiff ankle and so on. So like consequences at any minor milestone will start going away, but they'll still be trickling things in there, unless you use medical things. I am going to have your ship have certain medical supplies, so like we can get rid of minor mild ones.
Yeah, saves you.
Unless they're inherently interesting. Major milestones, which is the ones that you'll get for passing through the triangle. You can do one of these minor milestone steps as well as, so you can do any of the one before, as well as add one additional skill point, which you can spend to buy a new skill at average, or increase an existing skill by 1 rank, remembering about the triangle. So your first major milestone, you will more than likely, because you can't do anything else, you'll have to get a new average one. So in your first major milestone, you'll always be getting a new average. And then your next one, or your next minor milestone, you'll be able to sort of like move things up, just slowly shift them up. Remember though, skill pyramid, if you have any severe consequences, so with major milestone, this is where you start fixing your severe consequences. You can rename them to begin the road recovery process if you haven't already. So if you're traveling around on a ship with some basic medical supplies, I'm going to probably say that your mild and moderate ones are going to be able to be fixed. But any severe ones you get, maybe you'll have to like... It's narratively interesting to have you travel to a star system looking for a means to fix your broken leg, maybe. You know, it's fairly... narratively interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try a scenario with you now. So I'm going to actually run through one with a character sheet I've made, right? I am going to just steadily get this out because I've literally written one moments ago. This was for my other campaign. So there is like elements of like superhero things. I've changed it to make it more accessible, but one aspect of it you'll see like, oh yeah, I can see the superhero angle of this one. So I'm going to read this out for you. Right, okay. A hood-wearing thug kicks a downed food stall vendor whilst his compatriot ruffles through the food vendor's cart. Suddenly, we see a police car pull to a stop abruptly, its sirens blaring. The thugs go barreling down a nearby alleyway. Officer Kendrick barges out of the driver's seat and pursues the criminal with steadfast determination. His partner, who lumbers out of the passenger side, is less enthusiastic, leaning against the vehicle as if already out of breath. He yells after his partner, "You get him, Kendrick! I'll stake this area out." We see rubbish bins collapse to the floor in front of Kendrick as he barrels towards the criminals, the young thugs hoping to interrupt the pace of the seasoned police officer. The three suddenly approach a high fence. The young thugs effortlessly leap over the fence. Officer Kendrick readies his footing. And Officer Kendrick is going to roll some fate die. So I'm actually going to roll fate dice now. He rolled a +2, right? Which succeeds normally, but let's say he doesn't. Or let's say he wants to just leap over it better. If you notice on his character sheet there, he's got a stunt, hardcore parkour. +2 to overcome actions with athletics if you're in a chase across rooftops or similarly precarious environment. He rolled a +2, +3. He's already rolled a +5, so he'd leap over it like with no issue. But he can then now add +2 to that, so it's +7. So Officer Kendrick leaps defiantly over the fence. You see how he used that? If he would have failed, or say he would have only rolled a 1, he could use that to roll it to +2 to make it a 3. And that didn't cost him anything. So there's no fate points cost there, because that's a stunt. As the two young thugs run frantically ahead, we hear the whizzing of spinning bowlers fly towards one of the young thugs' feet. Okay, so I'm going to roll for, because in this instance, I'd be rolling for as the thug for this one. So I'm going to roll a the unseen bowler thrower is throwing shoot. So I'm going to throw shoot. So let's just say that Officer Kendrick threw the bowlers. He rolls +2 and he's got a +2 to shoot. So he rolls a +4, and our thug is rolling notice. So I'm going to click to reroll. He rolls -1. So Kendrick successfully throws these bowlers at them. Succeeds in tripping the thug, who then grasps at his friend to right himself, slowing his pace. Officer Kendrick looks up towards the rooftops of the alleyway and he makes out a shadowy figure. He nods in momentary appreciation and leaps over the fallen criminal. He tackles a young thug shortly thereafter. After a brief struggle, the young thug suddenly pulls a gun on the officer. The officer momentarily recoils in shock. He rolls to disarm the assailant. The roll calls for a great roll using fight. The roll is poor. So I'll just roll it. Mediocre. He rolled a 0, right? That's a poor roll. Officer Kendrick's player, argues that his aspect, gun nut, might allow him advantage in disarming the gun as he knows its strengths and weaknesses. The GM agrees, and thus he's allowed to either re-roll or add 2 to the roll. He adds 2 and takes away a fight point. So that 3 now would change to 2. Yeah? And he now has a 2 on his roll of 0. And that succeeds. Officer Kendrick deftly disarms the young thug, who continues running farther down the alleyway. The alleyway suddenly opens up into the larger city. He momentarily loses sight of the young thug. Officer Kendrick, compelling the aspect new to the city, or new to NYC, you can see it there, argues that he'd likely not know where the young thug was likely to head to from this point, as he isn't familiar with the area. He compels the aspect to his detriment, meaning he gains a fate point. So that 2 in the refresh rate would go back to 3. Because the refresh rate just doesn't change. You actually mark them off somewhere else on the character sheet. But like, he would gain 1 back because he's decided, you know what, actually I think I'd lose him here because I'm new to the city.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the scenario. It's like as simple as that. Cool. Essentially, you have competing roles or roles that are just like straight difficulty modifiers. That's my job. My job is to play the other character you're fighting against, or it's my job to just set a difficulty that you need to pass. And it's pretty much as simple as that. And that's it. That's the end of the slideshow.
End of presentation.
Have you got interactive fate sheets that we can use by chance?
I do indeed. I would, as homework, really recommend you look up stunt and aspect examples.
Already got it up.
I'm not telling you to use them, but they're worth a shot. Right, fate character sheet. There's a fillable one. You can download it. Is this the fillable one? What? It's not that one. Give me a second. Oh, that's big. Don't want that one. I don't like that one either. I've had one before. I was doing one earlier. Give me 1 second. No, okay, cool. I got one. Sweet. Give me 1 second. Fake core. There we are. Stunts. There we go. So if you go to here, I'll add it quickly to the string. And you need to register an account. We're using fake core. So once you log in, you can create a character, create fake core character. It'll look slightly different to the one that I showed you, but it'll have all the basics. A lot of them take away the extra bit, and we, in all fairness, we don't necessarily need it now. So that's the character sheet. It's on the screen there. It's form fillable on that one, so you can literally just fill it in. I think you can save it and export it, which you can do. I am going to have us run it through Foundry. So on Foundry, there's a fake core module that has like a full one. But what I'll do is I'll recreate your characters using the sheets that you give me. Okay. Throughout the week, homework is obviously look into aspects, look into stunts, look at loads of them for examples and stuff. But talk to me about them, because next week, obviously, we're introducing your characters and stuff. But this week, like, WhatsApp me and we'll talk about your characters, figure out where they're from, figure out their like origin story, so we can maybe like turn those into aspects, and figure out where you want your characters to start. Because obviously, in session 0, we're going to introduce both your characters and have the story set off. So it should be inherently interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I've got it. I've got my character sheet. There we go. So, done. Right. As in, I'll fill all that in later, but I've got it. I'm signed in.
So, what did you guys think? Any questions?
No,
it's
good.
It's really promising. That, yeah. Thanks for putting all that together. That's really cool.
Yeah, cheers, man.
It's all right. It's okay.
Fair play.
It's all aspects. Skills are just like D&D. Like, skills are the easy part. I really like the pyramid thing, because it means that, like, you know, you make a character that's really good at the athletics. Like, your instinct is, I want that athletics to be superb, but like it really forces you to like make your character more well-rounded before you can up that athletics to +5, which is
smart.
Good.
Really.
I really quite like it. It is smart. It is very smart.
Stops you becoming from overpowered too quickly.
Yeah, the combat. I'm really looking forward to try the combat, because like I was like really like, oh, okay, that I can sort of get it. So but like, you know, like practically, I don't know how it'll work, because I've not rolled fate dice against each other. The fate dice will be in Foundry, so we will be able to see each other's dice and stuff, so we'll be able to roll against each other. But in Fate, there's a lot of secret dice rolls, so I might like roll in secret a lot of the times. So like if you're trying to sort of like convince someone to give them information, if I roll a certain dice roll, you might know that he knows information or something. So a lot of it's like secret, but it is more collaborative, this, and I really quite like that. It's more like it's kind of like the arguments we would have in D&D, except they're part of the game in this one. So like, you know, like, I feel like my character would be able to do this because is a part of this game, and to be able to sell me on those, you have to every once in a while have your character slip up or have something bad happen to your character, and that's like the fundamental building blocks of narrative. So for you to be able to have a badass fight scene where you kick 3 guys' asses, you will have had to like like just like any film, Indiana Jones and stuff. You know, like he has cool moments, but
You can't always be winning and
can't,
overpowered
he's
sort
not
of thing.
always winning. He like gets his ass handed to him at a bar and almost dies.
I really like how it encourages you to be extremely vague with your aspects. I really like that.
Yeah. You're essentially boiling your character down. So the one thing I wanted to talk about is equipment. This game doesn't care what you have. That's why I was kind of like umming and ahhing over like the fact that you've drawn yourself armor, mate. Just have that armor. If you want your armor to be a significant part of your character, write the armor down as one of your aspects. That's all it is. So if you want your character, like if you wanted like your character to be like a badass swordsman, but the sword is Excalibur, you'd literally write one of the aspects is Excalibur. Like my sword is Excalibur. And literally like any aspect that you want to call in because of your magic sword, you'd have it on hand. So if you wanted a badass armor,
can we let's just talk that then. Talk this through. So for instance, I have to have my equipment as an aspect?
You don't have to.
Only if thing you want to draw on here.
Yeah, only if it's something that you want to. If your character is relying on it. If you feel it defies your character, then yes. If it doesn't, and it's just aesthetics, put it in the description, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just it's everything that I've done so far. Like that, the character that I showed you, it's just all flavour really at this point. There's no.
Yeah. If you feel like later on, you know what, I do want that armor to be an aspect of myself. I do want that armor to be something that is like part of my character fundamentally. At the end of any planet, put that as an aspect. From a narrative standpoint, it could easily be a stunt. I say, it's not too bad an idea as a stunt either, because it is kind of specific, especially if you were like, we were talking earlier about you having like corrosion-proof armor. That's an easily stunt. Like corrosion-proof armor is the name of the stunt. In any instance where corrosive substances might be found, you have +2 to your defend actions or anything like that. It's like an easily made as a stunt. Or if you don't want it to like essentially what I like about it, aspects are what defines your character, what makes your character interesting. The high concept is the fundamental of your character, but all the problems afterwards are interesting things that your character might have. Is he an alcoholic? Does he have a gambling addiction? And like these are all like bad. I always think of like negative ones, but they're not necessarily the negative. Does he have a gun? Does he have a locket from his father? Does he have Was he like from a bad parenthood? Was he an orphan? Was he like I like the idea of, especially in this space one, think of Peter Quill, Star-Lord, right? You put your name as Peter Quill, description, human kidnapped from Earth and taken in by the scavengers. High concept is, what would he be? Space vigilante or space adventurer? That would be a high concept space adventure.
Yeah, I suppose it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Trouble would be human. I would put human as one because he's human. A lot of things, because one of his major aspects is that he's human, and that's kind of weird in his space. His other one
would be a good
gunslinger. One. Yeah, definitely gunslinger. Third one might be like it's either eager to please or like he's like what's the word? He's not known in the universe, and that kind of bugs him. What would be a good way of putting that?
Not delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, delusions of grandeur, maybe. Like he thinks that he's the Star-Lord. No one knows who Star-Lord is. Delusion of grandeur be there, and you could call upon that. Like, oh, I'm going to compel that against myself now. I'm going to announce myself as Star-Lord, and none of them are going to know who I am. And great, that's perfect. Yeah, compel that, 100%. That's great, brilliant. What else? Something else we could do? Striving for family or like parental issues would be another one, so that he's always looking for a father figure. Like, things like that. It's as simple as that. And you'd have your skills. You'd probably have shoot be a great skill. You'd have him have like a lot of social ones because he's kind of like a funny guy, isn't he? And then you'd have like high will, but like on the lower end, you might have him have like a physique thing. And his stunts would be stuff to do with his guns and stuff to do with his fighting capacity, maybe, or stuff to do with his piloting skills. You know, it's easily done.
Yeah, I've just got to look in. I think it's for me. It's mostly the stunts that I need to work on. I think I've got my skills, and I've got some okay that I probably still need to work on aspects. But I've got one good aspect that I'm quite happy with. But it's just the stunt. But yeah, mate, that was really good. I'm happy with that. I am gonna have to shoot off now though, because
that's fine.
I hear quakenings from the baby.
No worries, man. So when are we next on?
I'm gonna stop streaming now.
Yeah.
So do you want to say goodbye to everyone?
Cheers. I hope it's been informative. Thank you again, Ola, for putting it together.
Cheers.
It's excellent. I'm looking forward to it.